Good afternoon. The latest confessions from Israeli soldiers have sparked a furious debate over accountability for military actions in Gaza. These soldiers have openly admitted to killing Palestinian civilians, including children, raising critical questions about the ethical implications of the orders and the broader conduct of the military. The testimonies facilitated by the organization Breaking the Silence reveal a disturbing pattern of violence and hostilities that have led to the deaths of over 44,000 Palestinians. This episode explores the possibility of prosecuting Netanyahu, members of his government, and others as criminal before the International Criminal Court in light of these revelations. Welcome to In Depth. Welcome back. And Human Rights Watch has accused Israeli authorities of deliberately depriving Palestinian civilians in Gaza of access to water since October 2023, contributing to thousands of deaths. The 179-page report claims that Israeli actions, including cutting off water, damaging infrastructure, and blocking water supplies, have created conditions that could lead to extermination and genocide. The report draws on interviews with Gaza residents, healthcare workers, and aid organizations, as well as satellite imagery and expert data. Human Rights Watch argues that Israel's actions constitute the crimes of extermination and genocide, citing statements that suggest an intent to destroy Palestinians in Gaza. Despite international calls for humanitarian aid, Israel has continued to restrict water and essential supplies to the region. The United States has rejected Human Rights Watch's accusation that Israel is committing acts of genocide in Gaza by targeting water infrastructure. According to Arab News, State Department spokesman Vedant Patel emphasized that the legal standard for determining genocide is very high and that the U.S. disagreed with the report's findings. However, he acknowledged that ongoing humanitarian crisis in Gaza. This statement followed a similar accusation by Amnesty International. Meanwhile, Doctors Without Borders accused Israel of ethnic cleansing in its ongoing 14-month war in Gaza, citing attacks on medical staff and health facilities. Patel distanced the U.S. from the MSF's conclusions, but expressed appreciation for civil society organizations and voiced deep concern over the civilian harm caused by the conflict. And to provide further analysis, we're joined by Mr. Khalid Nassif, an Israeli affairs expert from Ramallah. And good evening to you, Mr. Nassif, and welcome to Qnews. And from your point of view, what implications do the recent confessions from Israeli soldiers have for the accountability of military actions taken during operations in Gaza?
Good evening for you and for your watchers. Actually, this report is not the first one. It was like the 100 or 1,001 that published from this organization. Breaking the Silence is a kind of organization, an Israeli organization who watching and following up the behavior of the Israeli soldier in the occupied territories, even in Gaza or in West Bank or in Jerusalem. And that's also a kind of testimonies given by the soldiers themselves. The actual thing, these reports is very important for the human rights activists, for the human rights organization, for the international law, and for all the follow-ups of any kind of human violations in occupied territories by the Israeli army or by the settlers, which is a kind of till now in the international community, it's the Israeli and the Israeli army and the soldiers, they have the immunity from the international community to hold them accountable according to their behavior or according to their orders, even they are soldiers or commanders or anything. But in the strategic thing or in the long-term thing, it's this report is very important for recording, for reporting, for keeping the right for the people who was harmed, or the families who was harmed by this activist, in order to help the soldiers or the army as an organization, or the state as an Israel to be accountable for its action.
Mr. Nassif, you mentioned here immunity from the international world, but from your point of view, how might these admissions affect international perception of the Israeli occupied forces and their conduct during military operations from the world community?
Let's be honest about that. There is a political international community, and there is a human or like human rights international community. There is a differentiation between them because of the in the term of the political, there is no political will from the international community to hold Israel accountable according to their action till now. That's what I mean by the immunity that's given by the international law.
But we're speaking about grave violations to human rights and human from every humanitarian aspect, and we're speaking about values and principles of the international community. So, what's your take on that?
The right is there. The right is kept. The right is reported. But to be accountable for the soldiers, to be accountable for the Israel as a state for its action, or for the army as an organization or as an entity in this state, it's need a political will to follow up that. This is a kind of what we see according to the last war, the genocide war, from the third month. It was reported as a genocide action against the Palestinian people, but until now, the political arena, let's say, they didn't have a political will to hold Israel accountable according to that, and because of that, they are giving that umbrella of immunity for Israel to keep doing the war, even in Gaza, in Lebanon, now in Syria, tomorrow maybe in West Bank or in Iraq or in Yemen or in everywhere. That's what I mean by immunity given by the international community. The good thing is the independent organization like Amnesty, like Human Rights Watch, like international human rights organization, they are recording and they are keeping this information in order to give the opportunity for the victims, for the families, having this accountability in the future. when the political will is changed. يعني what I mean here, or what I refer here, is that coming to change by the long term? Yes, I think yes. By the short term, no, because till now the political international community given the umbrella of immunity for Israel and be accountable for this action.
Right.
There is a hope, yes, always there is a hope from the human rights activist, or from
Right.
human rights.
Before we go to hopes,
Okay.
we are joined here by Dr. Majid Boudan, an international law professor from Paris. Good evening to you, Dr. Boudan. And in your view, do the confessions from Israeli soldiers about killing Palestinian civilians create grounds for potential war crimes charges under the international law?
Yes, it's a very important evidence. Because this is a declaration by the soldiers who has they have committed themselves these crimes, and they did it in a very straightforward way, and they were even believing that it's a good thing that they have done. And when we see that, we feel that they are even thinking that they have complete impunity. And so these facts, these interviews are facts, and these facts are evidence that they must be brought before the general prosecutor of the International Criminal Court.
And that make me ask, how likely is it that the International Criminal Court would intervene in this case? And definitely, given that the nature of the confessions and the context of Israel's military operations that have been witnessed to the whole world.
Yes, but this is another evidence. The prosecutor has a lot of evidence now, and the court has a lot of evidence. And this is why they have issued these arrest warrants against Netanyahu and Gallant and Dave from the other side. But still, now we have more evidence on that, and this is they are very valuable material evidence. So it's not we cannot discuss this further. It is evidence, and this is admissions. So this is a very high level of evidence, and this is very important for the prosecutor to continue to make stronger his case, and I believe that we will see more evidence like that coming up.
Right. Turning back to you, Mr. Nazif, and what potential legal ramifications could arise from these confessions, both domestically within Israel and on the international arena?
I think, as Dr. Majid said, it's an important evidence. It can be used in the international arena for the cases that in the courts now, even as a genocide action for Israel itself as a state, or for the behavior of Netanyahu and Gallant and even the soldiers themselves. That's about the international, but internally, I think it's an important thing when there is an for the organizations, for the human rights organization, especially when we are speaking about the Israeli human rights organization, can go to the court and bring these cases or this evidence on the Israeli court. There is an opportunity here, but that's also depend on the organization themselves, like breaking the silence, or like B'Tselem or other organization, the Israeli ones, which can be open a file on the cases on the local issue and on the local level, and can be held this soldiers accountable for their action.
This doesn't mean that within Israel there are any kind of arguments about what's going on, right?
No.
Right. Dr. Bouden, what role does the Geneva Conventions and international law play in evaluating whether Israeli military actions in Gaza constitute violations of the international law?
Well, I mean, it's very clear. It is violation of international law under customary law and under the conventional law, the Geneva Conventions. So now where is the issue here? The issue that everybody knows, and the International Court of Justice had said that when they issued their provisional measures, we have indications that the court is convinced that Israel is violating international law. So it's not now a matter of opinion. It's not an opinion anymore. It is a decision from the highest court in the world. The International Court, the International Criminal Court, also when they have issued an arrest warrant against Israeli leaders, they have evidence that these crimes has been committed, and so there is violation of international customary law and of international conventions, the Convention on Genocide and the Convention on the law of the war and all these conventions. So now, the fact that these other matters like the UNRWA case is brought again, and it's we have to intensify. We need more intensification of cases like that and more evidence. So we have to push that the agenda of Israel to impeach or to create burdens or to make dilatory maneuvers must be countered by a very steady method of bringing the case in a speedy way. Why? Because the people in Gaza, when they are under the bombs, and they are still under the bombs, and they will continue to be under the bombs, the people, they will lose faith in international law. And our world is built on international law, and we cannot, the interest of the international community is to save itself by avoiding that the people around the world will lose faith in international law as the regulator of our lives and the relationship in the world. And this is a major matter. It's a matter of civilization. It's not a matter of law only, because if people will lose faith in international law and they don't believe in it as the regulator, then we will come back to the law of the force. We will come back to the fact that the people are believing that the one who will use force, he will be the game changer, and he will be the winner, and he will not be prosecuted, or he will not be punished. And this is a kind of
right, indeed.
impunity.
Indeed, particularly we are awaiting for those who are advocating human rights. But gentlemen, before we continue, let's take a moment to explore breaking the silence. Israeli soldiers share accounts of violence in Gaza. Stay tuned.
Recent confessions by Israeli soldiers have sparked significant debate about accountability for actions during military operations in Gaza. Soldiers have admitted to killing Palestinian civilians, including children, raising questions about the ethical guidelines and orders issued by military leadership. These revelations, published by Israeli media, come amidst the broader context of former soldiers speaking about systemic violence against Palestinians. Many of these soldiers have joined organizations like Breaking the Silence, which documents testimonies of military misconduct and the moral dilemmas faced during service. The testimonies detail not only physical violence but also psychological tactics aimed at instilling fear among Palestinian civilians. For instance, some soldiers reported being instructed to treat anyone near their positions as a potential threat, leading to indiscriminate violence against civilians. One soldier recalled the commander stating that there were no innocent civilians, fostering a mindset that justified the use of lethal force against anyone deemed suspicious. The implications of these confessions extend beyond individual accountability. They also raise serious questions about the leadership of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his government. Critics argue that these admissions could pave the way for legal action against Israeli military leaders and members of the Israeli government, including Netanyahu himself, for sanctioning or overlooking potential war crimes. As public sentiment shifts and calls for accountability grow louder, the possibility of legal repercussions for high-ranking officials becomes increasingly likely. The situation underscores the urgent need for transparency and justice in the wake of military operations that have caused civilian casualties and widespread trauma among Palestinians.
Right, welcome back. Mr. Nassif, what impact could these revelations, as we saw, have on Israel's international relations at large, and particularly with countries advocating for Palestinian rights? And from your point of view, how would that reflect on Israel?
That's a very good question. But let me refer in the beginning for the year now of the genocide war that's happened by the Israelis. And so far, nothing in the international community happened to stop this war. Even with all reports, even with all evidence that the court have it, even with all the things that can bring Israel to be accountable for their action. Till now, there is no political will to hold Israel accountable for its action. The international community, especially when we are speaking about America, USA, and Europe, as a EU, they are they are till now giving this immunity, this umbrella, this political and diplomatic cover for the Israel to do all the crimes in the Gaza, even in West Bank, lately in Lebanon, even now in this period in Syria, which is mean.
But Mr. Nassif, with all respect, the international community is not or does not constitute only big powers. Also, there are lots of other countries advocating for the Palestinian rights, and there are great interests between big powers and those countries. So, what's your take on that?
Those countries, they take an action from the beginning, from the day one of this war. The countries that support or that advocate for the human rights, they did an action against Israel, even diplomatic or political or legal, from the month one, the first month of this war, starting from South Africa, even for countries of America, Latin America, or other countries, even in Europe. From the day one, they start to take an action because they are respecting the human rights, respecting the international law, respecting the things that control all of the world. The question is that giving or stopping Israel from doing that? No, because the thing here is the power of the country, is the military or power,
the potential of the countries,
power,
yes,
the potential of the countries, which is most of them. The total or the most of the Europe countries and USA they are supporting, and they are
very much understood.
They didn't have a political will to hold an Israel accountable for that.
Right,
That and big question, and that's an crucial question from the law perspective and from the human rights perspective, because that's affect all the international community and the international law in the same time.
Let me take it from the legal point of view. And Dr. Bouden, how can international legal mechanisms, the ICC, the UN, any other of those legal institutions or organizations ensure accountability for military leaders in Israel while navigating the complexities of political and diplomatic pressures surrounding the whole issue?
Well, the most important ally is international law, because international law is made to protect the weaker party in a conflict. And for decades, for instance, the Palestinians, we can have it in other countries, and we can see it for African people, for African populations. They did not use the mechanism of international law, either because they did not believe in that, or because it's very complex to use these legal instruments. But
briefly,
now,
Mr. Bouden, because we are running out of time, can those organizations interfere?
Yes. And it's very important. When we saw that what South Africa has done before the International Court of Justice was very positive and will have the consequences, and they are positive. So now we have to go there and intensify all the requests, and also watch that there are interference within these organizations.
Definitely.
We have
definitely.
The prosecutor.
Upon the testimonies we've just received, unfortunately our time is out here, and that was Khaled Nassif, an Israeli affairs expert, and Dr. Majid Bouden, an international law professor. We thank you both, gentlemen, very much for your insights, and that brings us to the end of today's episode of In Depth. Many thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more updates on Qnews.